What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino.
Hi.
We are back. Casino, how you doing today?
Nah, not too bad. Can't complain. Feel much better now. I'm not sick.
That's good. I was worried. I was worried about this baby. You have healed. You are feeling better. You're ready to talk sports, and we have a lot of sports to talk about, Casino.
Oh my goodness, do we have a lot of sports
originally
to talk about.
switched. We switched from 2 days to 2 episodes a week to 1 episode a week because we were like, I don't even know what we're going to talk about. Right now, at the moment, when it comes to NFL and NBA, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 12 topics and one college football topic one college basketball topic as well. So this show is loaded, Casino. Are you ready to dive?
I am. Let's do it.
Okay. Would you rather talk about Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, or Daniel Jones?
Let's go Jackson. We've talked about him a lot. Let's just start off hot and heavy. Let's get him rolling.
So Lamar Jackson was placed with the non-exclusive franchise tag for $32 million next year. And this has, I don't even know. This has turned the NFL just on its head because I've also never seen this before. A bunch of teams that were potential landing spots for him if they did want to trade for him. A handful of teams from like the Falcons to the Panthers, teams you would think would be in on a Lamar Jackson type player, right? Because they don't have current starting quarterbacks, all just came out and said, nope, not interested. Like the Lions, also, I think the Lions are the rumored front runner for him right now, but I don't know. Just it seems like a bunch of teams have just come out and said no thanks, which has made a lot of people put their hands in the air and be like, this never happens. Why are they doing this with Lamar Jackson? So thoughts on the Ravens giving Lamar Jackson a non-exclusive tag, Casino? How do you think this ends with him in Baltimore?
Dude, I still don't know. I just don't know. Because again, people don't want him. He's injury prone. So, I mean, he's available. You know, what are we going to do with it? As you said, people are going out, franchises are going out. No, we don't want him. We don't want him. I get what they're saying. Like, he's a good quarterback. You know, he's won an MVP, but you got to finish the season. You said that multiple times last episode. You need to finish the season. It doesn't matter, you know, how good you are when you're on the field, because you got to be on the field. So, yeah.
Well, and I mean, I know it was kind of like it's now like a joking thing because so many AFC quarterbacks dropped out, but Tyler Huntley did make it to the Pro Bowl, Casino. He was in there for the AFC. So he is a Pro Bowl caliber backup quarterback.
It's on his resume.
Yeah. But I really do think so in terms of, because you hear a lot and like NFL players are saying this, some like NFL reporters and stuff are saying that this smells of collusion, right? Where it's all the NFL owners coming together and being like, we can't let the Deshaun Watson thing happen again.
Ooh,
where some dumbass fucking team comes out of nowhere, in this case the Browns, and goes, you want $250 million guaranteed, like no matter what happens, we'll give it to you. And then that just inflates and fucks up everybody else's quarterback situation or cap situation, because it's like now you have people like Lamar Jackson, and I'm sure he won't be the first, who is just like, I want that deal, even though everybody,
it's an outlier.
Everybody from fans to owners to agents know that deal was bad. And it looks even worse if after what we saw Deshaun Watson play like last season, if he
Well, we
even
knew it was going to be like that.
continues. Yeah. And then you have the Russell Wilson contract, which he went to a new team, new situation, and that was also pretty fucking bad because in both cases, Browns had a pretty good defense before Deshaun Watson got there, pretty good offense for a couple years, and then they just didn't really go anywhere. So they spent all their fucking money to bring this guy in, and they were like, he's going to solve our problems. And then turns out being away from football for 2 years isn't you still just don't come back at what you were when you left. And then with Russell Wilson, it was we have a top 5 defense, let's capitalize, and then he sucks, and now they have no draft
No
picks, they
money.
can't
Yeah,
sign
no
anybody.
draft picks,
Yeah.
no money, nothing.
So with the Ravens, well, from their perspective, the non-exclusive means it's going to take minimum 2 first-round picks. Then you have to work out a deal with Lamar Jackson's mom, which we'll get to. And then the Ravens can match that to avoid and just give Lamar Jackson the contract of a team that he would agree to go to save him. And then it's up to Lamar Jackson where he can choose, blah, blah, blah. Now, if they would have given him the exclusive contract, that means the exclusive franchise tag, I think it would have been like $10 more million, and then nobody else could potentially trade for him. So I really think that the week 1 starter for the Baltimore Ravens, either because he's sitting out or because he goes to a different team, I don't think it's going to be Lamar Jackson. I really don't.
Right.
I'd put money on
Yeah,
it
I mean,
not being him.
you want consistency, at quarterback. You don't want to expect this guy to be in there and then I'll be like, all right, well, when is he going to leave? When is he going to leave? When is he going to leave? No, whether he sits or whether he's not wanting to sit, you still bench him. This is how I would coach because he could be out anytime. So
Yeah. Well, but you're also not going to be paying $35 million to a guy sitting on your bench. Like at
well,
that point, just trade him. I don't know if he does. I don't think I've seen it anywhere.
but
If
you
he
got to have
has a
some.
no trade clause.
I haven't seen one either, but I mean, you have to have a team that's wanting to trade for him.
Yeah. Well, I think also, so when it comes to Lamar Jackson, everybody, and we'll get to right after this, we're going to talk about the Daniel Jones contract, but the main differences in these two players is the Giants are clearly rebuilding. Daniel Jones had his best year by far last year, and it was by most quarterback standards like pretty fucking bad, right? He threw 15 touchdowns. Like it's just he has more turnovers in the past, I think 3 or 4 years. I think I saw this somewhere than like any other starting quarterback. So I agree with people being like $160 million is too much for Daniel Jones, but I don't get why people try to do the comparison where it's like $160 million is too much for Daniel Jones, but $250 million is right on the money for Lamar Jackson. It's like both things can be true. $250 million is too much for Lamar Jackson, and $160 is too much for Daniel Jones. There's this
Yeah,
whole connection thing, and it's like it's two separate things. Just because they play the same position does not mean they both are
exactly.
worth
That's
it.
where everybody's that's where like these deals. I don't understand how these players think that they're going to be getting what the other player had. You're still an individual that has your individual skills. You're this good, you're that good, you're that bad, you're this bad, whatever. You're not the same fucking player. Things are not going to be
Yeah.
the exact same just because you're in that position. And I don't think a lot of players get that. Except for the ones
Well,
that are
it's
trying to go out and like get those top deals that know they rightfully so should, like a Patrick Mahomes or something like that, where you should be setting the market.
Well, exactly. And with the Lamar Jackson situation, the issue with him that has been throughout this entire process, and then the Deshaun Watson aspect of it kind of just made it way more of an issue when it comes to this contract, is he wants all the money guaranteed, or he wants, I believe the last report was he wants a $250 million contract with $200 million of it guaranteed.
Yeah,
Like,
again, he doesn't care about playing football. He knows he's injury prone. He just wants to make his damn money. That's not how
which,
this works. I understand that. Fuck, I would love that too, but
yeah.
that's not how this works. That's not how the league works because it's still a business. It's not just, hey, I'm decent at my position, so give me all the money. No, it's you have to still work at it. It's a business. You can't just coast. You can't do
Well,
that.
also, it's one of those things where it's like, listen, would you pay $250 million for a quarterback where just based on history, he's going to miss potentially half the season, potentially a quarter of it, potentially 3 games, like there's all this tape on Lamar Jackson where it's like the red flags for Lamar Jackson to me are 3 things. One is obvious, it's the injury history. Two, it's we haven't really seen him have playoff success even with loaded Ravens teams, right? Like the
Right.
big question mark going into the season was, are the Eagles really going to start Jalen Hurts because he had such a bad game in the playoffs? Like the question marks with him were, he's a starting quarterback in the NFL, and we saw him in one playoff game and he looked terrible, and then that had everybody second guessing. We've seen Lamar Jackson in every playoff game he's played not be good. Like, so when he has played the top echelon teams, like he just hasn't shown up in the playoffs. So that's one of my red flags that I just never hear mentioned. He's a great regular season quarterback, but you don't remember the great regular season quarterbacks.
No.
We judge every quarterback by how many Super Bowls and how they are in the playoffs, right? So that's why Kirk Cousins isn't everyone's favorite quarterback, right? And then the third thing to me is you have the injury, right? You have the playoff thing. And then the third thing, and this has to be a talking point, is his mom as the agent is the reason Deshaun Watson got the big contract that he did is because he has a fucking agent who fleeced the Cleveland Browns to give his client money, right? Like that's the whole point of agents, right? You pay them 10% of your earnings because they get you these insane fucking contracts that people like you and me sit here and are just like, how the fuck did Deshaun Watson get that? Like, also, I know we both like Cowherd or whatever. I was
Yeah,
listening to one
Colin,
of
good
his
man.
I was listening to one of his shows, and he brought up a fucking great point, which I haven't heard anybody else say. So I'll just steal his take, but at least I give credit to him right now. He was making the point that the thing with agents is you as the team doesn't want to fuck over an agent, right? Because he potentially has other clients that you will then be fucked over or passed over if the opportunity ever comes up where they can be on your team, right? So you don't want to piss off one of the top 10 agents in the NFL because who fucking knows how many clients he has or any of the rookies that come out that they have the clients with, blah, 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 blah. However, if you want to fuck over Lamar Jackson's mom as the agent, guess what? She only has one client. So if you're not in the Lamar Jackson business, why the fuck do you care if you're just like, nope, fuck Lamar Jackson's mom. She's not anybody else's agent. Like, so that was a point where I was like, that's true. Like, that's good. Now, the last talking point of this casino, I don't think he stays with the Ravens. Do you?
No, I think he's gone. I really just
So,
I mean, it shows when they leave it up for a trade. You know, they're not. It's a oh my gosh, what am I? Not an exclusive. And blah blah blah. Oh
what?
my gosh, not
I don't
an
know what words you're searching
exclusive.
for. Oh,
My God,
non-exclusive franchise tag?
thank you. Non-exclusive. I was looking for the fucking word non. Oh God, non-exclusive. Like they left it open for the trade. They don't care to keep him there. They don't. They're actually wanting somebody to come in and take this contract away.
Yeah. Now, where do you think he goes is the next question that we're basically at this point. Because I feel like the consensus now is the Ravens, Lamar Jackson showed his hand, right? And was just like, this is what I want. Give me this, or I'm going someplace else. And the Ravens were like, we're not giving you that, but we don't want you to go anywhere else. So I feel like it's already like, no way in fuck Lamar Jackson goes back to the Baltimore Ravens. I was legitimately be shocked. So the teams reportedly, as of yesterday, that have said they will not be pursuing a deal with Lamar Jackson are the Falcons, Panthers, Raiders, Dolphins, Commanders. I read somewhere that apparently the Lions are like talking to him. Apparently the Jets are. Of the rest of the teams left in the NFL, obviously, so Ravens, Panthers, Falcons, Raiders, Dolphins, Commanders are out, right?
That's
Of
a big
all the
chunk.
other teams, that's a quarter, almost a quarter of the league. Where do you think he goes, Casino?
Dude, I don't know. Do you have a thought? Like, I really don't know who'd want to pick him up.
I mean, I think I honestly would have said my two teams where he would have gone would have been the Commanders, because the Commanders just feel like a team that would be like, fuck it. Here's all this money to this one quarterback. We've always had quarterback issues. Like, come in here, solve one of our biggest things, and just have at it.
Solve
Right.
it or make it
But
worse still. You never know.
yeah, I do think there's reports, and we'll get to him in a second, where the Jets and Aaron Rodgers are apparently talking, and then what is it? Derek Carr and the Jets were talking. I think the Jets, out of all the options on the list, clearly Lamar Jackson is who you would want out of those three. I mean, disagree with that?
No, I don't. That's fair.
It's just, if you're the Jets, why the fuck would you, if you're taking a flyer on a quarterback that's going to be expensive as shit, why would you pay 1 year for Aaron Rodgers at $40 million when you can get Lamar Jackson for, I don't know, if you want to do a Patrick Mahomes style deal with Lamar Jackson where you put him on a 10-year contract and space everything out, backload the contract so there's not a lot of dead money, and guarantee him. I mean, we'll also talk about Derek Carr. He got $100 million guaranteed, right? So you want to give Lamar Jackson, be like, listen, we can give you $150 million guaranteed out of a $500 million 10-year, 8-year, 7-year contract. Like, how the fuck would he say no to that? Like, it's clearly about the money. And again, we're not here to tell people not to spend money, especially when it's hundreds of millions of fucking dollars. But
Right. It's a
yeah,
big,
it just
big
seems
thing.
like the Jets. I mean, so you can count out all the AFC North teams, right? They would never trade him in fucking division. AFC South, you can count out the Jaguars, maybe Titans, maybe Colts, maybe Texans, instead of, trade, or instead of doing the number one pick, maybe they throw it all in for Lamar Jackson. I don't know. But your Patriots, maybe a dark horse team.
Well, I mean, we saw what happened last time the Patriots had a running quarterback, didn't work out for him.
Yeah, that's true.
What I'm saying is they didn't utilize the run, they were just throwing him. So
Yeah. I really do think, though, it's either Jets, maybe, I don't think they would have the cap space for it at all, but I feel like an interesting team that would do something like this, especially after the reports of their quarterback have come out. The Rams, apparently Stafford, I read a report where Stafford is a lot closer to retirement than people think. And there's like reports out there that he basically can't throw anymore. Like his arm is just done.
but I mean, I read
So
a few of those as well. That's interesting. So let me ask you about the Jets. So obviously the Jets didn't get Carr. He's going to New Orleans, playing for the Saints. I really felt like it was going to be one of those two teams. So now if the Jets don't get Rodgers, and like say Rodgers goes to, which I still think he's going to go to the Raiders. Um,
Mhm.
personally, I still think he's going to go there. Uh, what do the Jets do if they, let's say, they can't get a Rodgers or Jackson? I mean, they're in need of a quarterback. Do you
Well,
just think?
they
Let me ask this: do you think the quarterbacks just don't want to play there, or do you think that the Jets organization aren't ponying up for them to play, ponying
I
up for
think
quarterback?
we can segue this into talking about Derek Carr, but I don't know. Maybe it's just I feel like we never really talk about like the stink of certain NFL teams or whatever, right? Like it's one like the Jets are one of those teams where it's like if you're not a fan of the Jets, you're always kind of like, who the fuck would want to play for the Jets, right? They haven't been relevant. They've won one Super Bowl since 1967, I believe, right? Super Bowl 3. And it was like, and it's just like the Jets are only a team people talk about in the way they do because they're New York, right? If
Yeah,
they were the fucking Green Bay Jets, nobody would fucking talk about them ever. They might as well be the Houston Texans, where it's just like out of everyone's mind unless they're in your division or you're a fan of them, right? But the
that's a good
Jets
point.
really like of all the teams last season, I feel like you can count on one hand, maybe even less than that, like how many are just like one piece away, right? Like the Jets, they had a competent run game. They had a great run game with the rookie Brees Hall before he got injured. They
And even
have
with
Garrett
him,
Wilson.
even with him out, when they got knighted, like it was still a competent running game, as you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah. So they have at least one or two running backs who can get you 100 yards a game if you want to do run by committee, blah blah blah. O line is top half of the league, right? Defense is top 5. You have an emerging, and the thing with them is you have a young emerging like defense and offense, right?
yeah.
So
You-
if you
You're
can
you're missing
cultivate
one.
it,
You're missing one piece, which is a competent, decent quarterback. That's it.
dude, Zach Wilson last year, our favorite quarterback, that motherfucker, right? He was out there last year slinging dick and slinging for 70 yards a game, and they were still winning. Like, now imagine if you get, we don't like Rodgers, but Rodgers is 100 times better than
Oh,
Zach
they get
Wilson.
Rodgers. You can probably
Like,
add at least 2, maybe 3 games to what their record was this year. I would say at
yeah,
least
I
2.
think if I was the Jets, I would have gave Derek Carr whatever the fuck he wanted. Like as long as he doesn't want
That I really
250
thought he was going
million
there. I
guaranteed.
thought he was.
I
I
did
thought Carr
too.
was going to the Jets.
There were all the reports out there of like, oh man, the Jets are telling him he can be in the Hall of Fame if he goes with them, and like they're really stroking his ego and giving him all this money, and then he goes to the Saints, which I love New Orleans, some of the best food I've ever had in my life, but I don't think New Orleans is as close to ready as the Jets, even though, and let's segue to that casino. So
Right.
Derek Carr signed a contract. It was 4 years. Oh, I have it right here. 4 years, 100 million or $150 million, 100 million in total guarantees. He also gets $70 million effective, fully guaranteed, 60 million at signing, and then another 10 years in year 3, or
You
another
mean
10 million in year 3.
10 million year 3.
So basically, he gets 100 million guaranteed, $150 million dollar deal, 4 years, and that's by Ian Rappaport
Yeah,
on
60
Twitter.
60
So
million at 60 million at signing, 10 at the end, or 10 in third year, and then 30 at the end.
yeah,
Guaranteed. Like, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I'll take that.
I mean, 4 years, I feel like is the perfect length of time because let's say he comes out and sucks, and then it's just like, all right, well, we're gonna suck for 3 years, 2.5 years, and then we put somebody else in there. We eat the dead cap, and then it's just like a reset. right?
Yeah, well, they can if it's not working out by the end of year 2, you already start with that rebuild. You kind of figure out what kind of quarterback that you want, what you're going to shoot for, whether you want to be like a rushing quarterback, or if you want that was loud. Yeah, sorry. A rushing quarterback, squirrel, or like a passing quarterback, and you work out what kind of quarterback you want. Do you want somebody that can be mobile in the pocket but still is a passing quarterback, like a Mahomes, or you figure that out and you start that rebuild early. So I totally agree. 4 years. I mean, I've given my opinion a billion times about how I hate long contracts. I just fucking can't stand them. Because it's not
Unless
just
it is like the Patrick Mahomes one.
yeah, that's fair because it's team friendly.
Yeah.
You're not screwing over your whole team, so that's
Oh,
fine.
you mean like
And
the Browns? Like,
there you go. So yeah, no, I'm totally fine with this deal. I mean, it's smart by the organization, but you're right. The Jets are more ready than, at least in our eyes, than what the Saints are. But the Saints, they're competent. They're not awful. But yeah, we'll see.
now, the crazy thing is, and I just pulled up the cap space for this year, like going into, the draft and free agency and all these trades and signs and blah 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 blah. Uh how the fuck the Saints did this deal with do you want to guess how much cap space they have with this offseason?
I don't know. 4.
They have negative $24 million.
Oh,
So they need to find basically $25 million before the start of the year. With the start of the official football year or whatever. The only one who has a worse cap situation is the Tampa Bay Bucks, who have negative 48 million.
well, that team's
So
blown up.
I mean, uh so that also brings us to the Lamar Jackson thing, just to go back to that for a second. Chicago has the most cap space this offseason, which I think they've kind of now fully committed to Fields, right? Because
Oh
there
yeah,
were a bunch of teams asking, are you going to draft a quarterback? Are you going to trade Fields? Blah, blah, blah. And they basically, I think their GM and coach basically and owner came out and were like, Fields is our guy. We're going to go with Fields. So they have the most cap space. If they can get him some weapons and some key pieces on defense, Bears might be 1 or 2 years away from being a contender, especially if Rodgers leaves. That opens up the NFC North,
that
right?
finally opens up for them.
Yeah. So number 2 is Atlanta with 64 million. They said they're out. The next 2 are the ones where I don't know. I trust the Falcons with being like, we're out. I don't trust the Raiders because we know the Raiders are actively looking for a quarterback, right? Like,
Right.
so the next 2 are Raiders, Houston, and then
But
nobody really in that mix that would need a quarterback. So I really do think we're talking about Carr, now Rodgers and Lamar with the Raiders casino. Who do you think they get, or do you think, if you had to put money on it, do you think there's more of a chance Rodgers goes to the Jets or Raiders right now today?
Raiders.
And why would
Raiders.
you say that over the Jets?
Well, he's already that he has his issue and his confidence issues when it comes to throwing the ball to players that he's not used to. And so you already got Adams over there that knows him. He knows Adams. He's got a very good relationship with him. So, like how it was this year where he didn't want to throw it to pretty much anybody because he didn't trust anybody. So you actually have somebody there that you can trust. He knows that he's got a safety blanket for himself. Plus, he wants to be in the spotlight. Where better to be in the spotlight than Vegas? I know
Well,
the
New
Jets
York.
are Jets. Well, I know New York and the Jets, but whatever. But again, that franchise hasn't been notable forever. Um, I mean, just think about the last decade. What do you hear more about? Both shitty teams for the last decade. What do you hear more about? The Raiders or the Jets? And the
Yeah.
Raiders.
Yeah.
He wants to be in that spotlight. It is a broken organization. He loves the broken home kind of feel that he wants, and I'll be honest, that's what he loves. He strives off that. He does. He really does. He strives off that.
Well,
He
yeah, that's why
wants
his
he
whole family hates him, right?
yeah.
He likes that. He likes conflict. He likes conflict except when you uh are combative against him in any way, which is I've heard this from multiple people and I agree. I think New York would eat him fucking alive. Like the
Oh,
media and everything you hear about that, he is not a Eli Manning or Daniel Jones kind of guy who just seems like numb to it all and dumb and like doesn't give a shit. Like, like that just dumbfounded, like, oh, what are
it'll
they
get
saying
to
about
him.
like yeah, it sounds like
I mean,
he
because
would crack under
like
that
with,
pressure.
the Vegas media, I mean, you and I know the Vegas media very well. They're kind of like the Wild West. They just like to sit back and they like to eat the drama up. In New York, they like to stir the drama up. It's a great example. This is you're very right there, and I agree with you. Just think of like the Kevin Durant. That was one of the biggest storylines about him playing for a New York team was Durant's sensitive, very sensitive.
Yeah,
That media is going to eat him up and piss him off. I guess what it did. I can see that really happening with Rodgers too. That's a good
yeah.
point.
I do what is it? I do agree. I think the way this shakes out is obviously Carr went to the Saints. And before we move off that one, do you think it's a good move by the Saints to get Carr?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't think Carr's a bad quarterback. There's a lot of people out there who think he's a bad quarterback. I don't. I think he's solid enough. Is he going to be the best quarterback ever out there? Is he Patrick Mahomes level? Is he Jalen Hurts level? No, he's not going to be. But is he a Kirk Cousins little, maybe a little better? Kirk Cousins with with a chance of improvement? Yeah, that's kind of where I
Yeah.
have him.
Well,
I,
also,
I I don't think
he
he's fully hit his full potential yet as a quarterback. Um,
yeah,
so I thought though he would go to the Jets, um, because as you were saying, it is a young team. He can really build that team around him, like that he can be the guy. Um,
yeah.
and New Orleans, I think he'll do just fine, but I think it's a good grab by New Orleans. Maybe a bad move for Carr himself.
I actually agree with you. Yeah.
I think it
I
might be a
think
bad move for Carr himself, but is it a good move for New Orleans to get him in there? Yeah, they'll be better than what they've had.
I agree with you because I think we both would have agreed the Jets would have been a better landing spot for him. Only thing with him going to the Saints, he's now uh the definitely the best quarterback in that division, right? Because if Brady retires and stays retired, the other three are the Buccaneers, the Falcons, and the Panthers. Like Carr is better than all those quarterbacks right now.
You
And
know,
he
because you
goes
don't know you don't
from
know what the Bucks are going to do, and the other two they were sitting and starting multiple quarterbacks throughout the entire year. So
yeah. And they're
chaos.
probably at least going to one the Panthers most likely are going to draft a new quarterback. Falcons are up in the air to who they get. Now, I will say with Carr going to the Jets, he goes from being the third quarterback, the third to fourth best, well no, definitely this past year, the third best quarterback in his league to now the third best quarterback in the NFC. Like, who's above him? What Hurts and like Prescott? Who else in the NFC is like at the level of we did this before where like all the good quarterbacks are in the AFC. So Carr going from the AFC to the NFC, it drastically makes him one of the best top 3 quarterbacks in the NFC. Who else is better than him?
That's a good point. That's solid. So I think it's a win for New Orleans. Maybe not so much the biggest win for Carr career wise on longevity, but we'll see. I
Short
just think that he
term,
could have made more of a name for himself in New York. Um,
yeah.
by building a franchise around him instead of being like a piece into the Saints.
I also don't know. I like New Orleans pieces, right? They have a top 5 defense. They have, if Kamara comes back, they have Olave. If Michael Thomas comes back, their offensive line is pretty good. They have that
Well,
weird Taysom
Kamara
Hill
might not come
X
back because
factor.
they need to make some cap space here.
Yeah. But Dennis Allen, I'm really hesitant to put my trust in coaches, especially after that Denver Broncos debacle last year, right? Because when they got Russell Wilson, myself and everyone else included was like, the Broncos are going to be fucking something next year. And then they
I said they were
weren't.
going to be
And
something. I said they were going to be
they,
something. That was it.
the
Just
something
something.
they were was shit. That was the something casino. But uh so next up, casino, to go on this quarterback carousel we got going here. Daniel Jones. I don't know if
Woo!
you heard or not, but he signed a 4-year $160 million contract. I'm looking for it right now. Where is it? Okay. He had a 4-year, $100 million or 4-year, $160 million contract. Do you think uh, Daniel Jones is worth that much money?
I don't think he's worth that much money. I'm fine with the amount of years if you really want to try to get him going. He had a decent year this last year, best year in his career, in my opinion. Not just because um, he got him into the playoffs, this and that. He just looked better. He looked more confident as a quarterback um, throughout the whole season. So I'm fine with giving him a shot. 4 years, we've talked about it. I'm okay with that. Uh, I maybe would have done like a 3-year, but if he was hard set on a 4-year deal, fine. I'd give it to him. No more. But again, that's not that much money. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not crazy. I mean, it's still a lot, but anyway. Um,
Daniel Jones' career touchdown to interception. He's been in the league 4 years, started all 4 years. He threw for 11,603 yards, 60 touchdowns, 34 interceptions. He threw last year 15 touchdowns, the year before 10, year before 11, and then his rookie year, he threw 24 touchdowns. Now the improvement has been he threw for the most yards he's ever thrown last year, and turned the ball over the least. So his rookie year, he threw 12 INTs. 2020 through 10, 2021 he threw 7. Last year he only threw 5. So his touchdowns are going down, his yards are going up, and his turnovers are going down. So this is my issue. Now they signed him 4 years, 160 million with 35 million in incentives. They did, however, avoid putting the franchise tag on him, so they could put the franchise tag on Saquon Barkley, sign him. So they keep those two probably star players, at least on the offensive side for that team. But right now, do you think in 4 years, let's just put it in this 4-year bracket, do you think Daniel Jones makes the Giants, I'm not even going to say a Super Bowl contender, do you think that he makes them a win 2 games in the playoffs contender?
no,
I don't either. I just don't know
definitely.
why, especially it's never been easier in the NFL to be a passing quarterback, right? Like, never been easier. All the rules are geared towards you. Everybody is now an offensive minded like genius, right? Everybody has schemes, and it's all he has. Brian Dayball, who's probably
Looks like
one of the
college
top.
ball.
Yeah, he's Brian Dayball's his coach, one of the top 5 offensive minds, maybe in the whole NFL. And this dude is still throwing for 15 touchdowns. Now, granted, he didn't have anybody to throw to last year,
And
but
you have that monster in running back with Barkley, so
yeah, and you also are, or at least I'm forgetting, Daniel Jones makes a lot of plays with his legs, right? He's a great for
he's a giant.
mediocre as he is as a passer, he's a great runner, right?
Right.
He's really good in space. He's really good in picking up those extra yards, but I don't know, man. I just don't. When I look at Daniel Jones, like I just don't see again, even in a weak NFC, he would be a top 10 quarterback, but I would really fight anybody who tries to put him in the top 5. Like I just don't think I don't think he's at like a Derek Carr level, if that's crazy to say. I don't know. Like get now, I will say, you get him some weapons, get him the equivalent of when Josh Allen got like a Stephon Diggs or whatever, get him a star wide receiver or somebody to target, and then we'll see what his numbers are. Get him people to throw to, and then if he still has these stats, then it's like I would throw my hands up and just be like, all right, I'm done. Like, I don't know what we can do for this guy, but it's a team, it seems to be a team friendly deal. I don't really think it's that crazy because there seems to be a lot of caveats, in terms of there's incentives to make him get a good portion of that money. So I don't know, Casino.
Right.
Last one on the quarterback carousel is the Seahawks, and Geno Smith signed a 3-year, $105 million contract extension. Do you like the move, Casino?
I don't dislike it. Nah, who am I kidding? I don't like it.
I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all.
I try to be nice about it now. I just don't.
Now, again, I feel like both of us gave Geno Smith his props during the season, right? Fun story, great player to watch. Really cool what happened with Seattle when they kind of divorced themselves from Russell Wilson. Everyone, us included, thought they would suck this past year. And then Geno Smith comes in, wins comeback player of the year. What did he come back from? Just being bad? Like, I don't know how that's but who cares, right? It was a good story. He won comeback player of the year. I like Geno Smith, but how do you not just go, we'll franchise tag you, which means you get a good payday, right? Because the franchise tag, as we saw with Lamar Jackson, you're getting upwards of $35 million to be franchise tagged as a quarterback. So it's not like they're offering him a 1-year, $1 million contract, right? He's getting a nice payday. He's on a prove you can do this one more time. It wasn't just a fluke year, and then we'll sign you to a 3-year contract after this. I just feel like I need one more year to see if it was an aberration or if it is like this is who Geno
An aberration.
Smith is now. An aberration, an anomaly. I don't know, but yeah, I think we're both just like good for Geno Smith, but if I was the Seahawks, I don't know. Now, Casino, we move from quarterbacks to running backs. Did you see this fucking Joe Mixon story?
I saw it pop up. I have not looked into it. No. So if you want to educate me, feel free. I'm here.
So, well, that's the thing. Shit. I read like multiple things about it, and I still don't know what the fuck happened because there was the story is there were kids having a Nerf gun war around or in front of his house. Okay. Then reports are there was shots fired from inside Joe Mixon's house to the kids playing with Nerf guns. Now, from what I've read, nobody was shot. It says, let's see, on Thursday, Hamilton County released the incident report from the March 6th incident during which police allege, a kid was shot in the foot. Blah, blah, blah. So Mixon's representation said the running backs council had conversations with the Hamilton Community Prosecutor's Office and expects the case to be resolved soon. So, according to the incident report, children were playing Dart Wars, a game that involves toy guns that shoot foam bullets, so Nerf guns. Witnesses told police the children were playing in the victim's backyard around 8:30 Monday evening. Shots were fired from the backyard of the neighboring home, which police confirmed is tied to Mixon. An unidentified subject fired 11 shots, with one of them hitting and injured a child when it hit him in the foot. The injuries were not life-threatening. There's no charges have been filed, and 2 people were identified as suspects. What the fuck?
Yeah, first off, we got to find out who was in that house. Was it just Mixon or what? Like, but here's the thing. Don't go on private property. I'm not trying to defend
this is
the shooter here.
From what I just read, doesn't it sound like they were in the next yard over? It doesn't sound like they were in his backyard. It sounds like they were in a yard over and then shots came from the window. I don't think they were in his backyard. They were in a backyard. But keep going.
No, yeah. I mean, so at night, it's dark property. And so here, my question is like, what kind of Nerf guns were these? Again, this is me just playing a little bit of a devil's advocate here. I don't condone shooting blindly at children by any means. But Nerf guns, and not just saying it's Nerf, let's just get the Nerf out of there. Toy guns, there's sometimes that they look realistic. And I have known people to saw off like the orange safety on the front, so you know it's a fake gun. But again, it's at night, so you can't really see that. And they've made it to where some of those Nerf, I even have one where I don't even know if it's Nerf as the brand, but it's a foam dart gun, but it shoots really hard and it's really solid tip that maybe things were hidden and it sounded like it was bad. I don't know. I'm just trying to give a benefit of the doubt here. But to play devil's advocate, but again, you should not be just shooting randomly at children. I wonder if he was. So whoever it was, clearly you should know that it's children. You had to be wigging out on something. There had to have been something going on. You had to have something in your system to be like, oh, they've got real guns and they're shooting at me and I'm going to shoot back. You had to be on something because I just can't. Even a psychopath, I don't see in the right mind would be shooting towards children in the dark and expect nothing to happen. I don't know.
Well, I feel like
so whoever it was, there had to been some sort of. They're not in a good state. Let's just say.
Now I keep reading different things about this. Apparently, the high school sent out a memo as long ago as 2014, like warning parents that these Nerf gun wars in this area are going to get kids like hurt. It's 2023. These Nerf gun wars have been happening since 2014. Is he new to the neighborhood? Is the person that was in his house who actually fired like visiting or something? But I agree with you. I think the insane part of this story is to just blindly fire a gun out a window, like at people who look like they're running around a backyard. Again, I still don't know if it's his backyard or a neighbor's backyard, but just around your house with Nerf guns. And again, yes, they could have looked like real guns. And when they say kids or children, and then you hear reports of it being like a high school, like, I don't know, some high school kids can look older, but still, I don't know. Again, I feel like to just randomly be like, I'm going to shoot these people is just a real leap in logic, regardless of if it's real guns or a Nerf gun war, blah, 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 blah. But that's definitely an interesting story. Not our only interesting story.
Yeah, let's move on to our next gun story.
College basketball is going on right now. We don't really talk about it a lot on this show because I don't watch like almost any college basketball. I'll watch when it gets tournament time and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But
And with that being said, for next episode, we need to get our brackets together because brackets will be out, and we gotta make a bracket. We've got to do
we
brackets.
will do a bracket on the show, talk about it. Usually the people who know nothing about college basketball do better. So I'm expecting to fucking wipe the floor with you, Casino,
And I'll
with
crush you.
my hot NCAA takes. But the one story that has been in college basketball that has not escaped my non-watching of it has been this Brandon Miller story, the player from
Crazy.
Alabama. It's I don't even and it's topical now. I felt like we should hold off on it because it was just one of those things where like, what the fuck would we even say about it? It was all speculation, blah, blah, blah. But now he came out and had a press conference yesterday where he talked about the shooting. Now, apparently, he was the one who gave a gun to a teammate, and that gun was used to kill, let's see, I just had her name, Jamia Harris, an Alabama freshman, or I don't even know if she went to Alabama. But on January 15th, there were everybody was like, should this guy be still playing? Should he still be playing? He played through the entire thing. He's still playing. He did that uh celebration or player intro where a guy on the staff like checked him for a gun in one of the games, but he'd done that every game prior to this. So it was kind of like a story that became a non-story. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, Casino? My question is, should he even have played or been playing during this whole thing?
I don't think that he should have been playing. Just on the off chance that he was part of this, the shooting. Um, it was allegations they had to do the investigation, this and that. But as an organization, as you should not allow anybody to play until things are, especially something this magnitude. You should not let somebody get on the court and play until things are figured out. I don't care how good he is or whatever. It's bad look on the college.
Well,
Personally,
he's been averaging almost 20 points and 8 rebounds per game. He is expected to be a lottery pick in the next NBA draft, and the Alabama Crimson Tide are now going to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So the school, it's one of those things where it's like it becomes so weird when it just becomes like sports, because especially college sports, because there's so much fucking money wrapped up in it, right? Like the difference between being a good school and a bad school and being in the college football playoffs or the NCAA tournament is literally like it could be as much as hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So I can see the boosters of those schools or the people running those schools being like, if he's not charged with anything and he's our best player, get him on the fucking court. Who gives a shit? Right? Like,
well,
so
yeah,
from the
because it comes about money.
perspective,
It's about people, spending money, and that's where shit gets corrupted and fucking
yeah.
bullshit. In my
Well,
opinion, he
college
shouldn't have been
sports
on
has
the
always been
yeah,
a
he shouldn't have been on
corrupt.
the court. He
Yeah.
should have been on the court because it looks bad and looks like it's gonna be a bad look for Alabama for letting him play.
Well, he hasn't been charged with anything yet, but
Yet.
if you're the one who has the gun that kills somebody, like how there's no way in fuck you just walk away scot-free.
No,
Like,
that's accessory to murder.
why is he giving his gun to anyone? With like you think you give a gun so they can do what with it? There's only one fucking thing guns can do, right? Hunt or use to kill animals or people or fucking clay pigeons. Like, so if his friend is like,
You,
oh, he
you
gave me
meant
that gun.
I see what your guns are meant to destroy.
Yeah,
They're meant to
there's no
destroy
other
whatever it is.
purpose for a gun.
Whether it's for sport, game, clay pigeons, hunting, whatnot. Like I have family members who live in a farm town and they're hunters. They do hunting. I mean, but and a couple of them are actual sports shooters. So like
Yeah.
there, it's not always to kill people, but guns are meant to be
Used
destructive.
as weapons.
Yes,
like,
like
and I'm
like
sure,
they're like even just shooting like for instance, I have a cousin that he's a expert marksman with a handgun. Like he does tournaments and they're shooting little targets here and there, but guess what? The target's getting destroyed because guns
yeah.
destroy. So like that's to give your gun, your personal gun, whether it was legal or not legal, whatever, to somebody without knowing their intentions, and you're not standing right there with it. Even if you're at a shooting range and someone's like, "Hey, can I have your gun for a second?" I'd be like, you could go and rent one and do all this. I'm not going to give you my personal gun that's registered to me so you can
Yeah.
do whatever with. No, like that's not how it should go. So, no, in my opinion, I don't know exactly how the legal system works, but to me, that sounds like accessory to murder.
That's where I keep coming from. And his coach does what a coach in this position would you would think he would do, which is just like stick up for the player. Like I'm not really putting blame on anybody
Yes.
else in the
Yeah.
organization because it's one of those things where like you never expect to be in that position and then it's kind of like on the fly you have to come up with ways to be like how do I talk about my player still playing in the game and even if he was like you said an accessory to murder like it's one of those things where I don't think you ever think you're going to be in that situation. And then when you're in it, you're just like, the fuck are we supposed to do with this? But do I think he shouldn't have been playing? Do I think he should have been playing? No. Do I think this will kind of hang over that team's head and make them look bad? Like, yeah, until football season starts and then Alabama's one of the top 5 teams in college football. And then it's going to be like, who gives a shit kind of thing. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't think it was
Sad.
handled correctly, but I don't know how else you would handle it besides just sitting him, but then you lose a shitload of money. And if you're the organization, all you give a fuck about is money. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Now we go from college football to NBA casino. And guess what? It's our third gun story in a row
What?
because,
That's a
yeah.
trifecta.
uh Ja Morant of the
This is such a
Memphis
silly story.
Grizzlies was seen on his Instagram live video with a gun. He was flashing a gun. The team obviously suspended him and then he
Hey,
now
look
as
what you
of
did. You suspended him before the investigation was done. Hey, look at that. Look what you did. Woo!
and so he apparently he's been as of yesterday he's been cleared of I mean there wasn't really a crime here he just showed a gun but if it wasn't registered to him blah 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 so he's been cleared of all that apparently it was his gun he was flashing it on Instagram live he is at this moment going to miss at least 4 more games he came out with a statement that said you need to be better for my
That
team blah blah blah
that
blah
the
blah.
league wrote for him.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, the NBA commissioner said if there was ever a gun on team property or a visiting team's property, that player would automatically be suspended for 50 games. So now people have asked him about that. He obviously went back on that. So John Morant won't be suspended for the rest of the season, but he
Well, did he
will
have
be
it on
suspended.
property?
I'm sorry.
So you're saying
Well,
the
no.
commissioner went back on all that? Yeah. And
Well, I think he kind of danced around it. And that was one of those things he just said because he was like, this will never happen to one of the star players on a playoff team. And then it happens. But the issue is if it was with him on a road trip, that means he would have had to have had the gun with him when he traveled from Memphis to that town, right? So that means the gun would have had to have been with him in a NBA team's facility, right? So that's where it all becomes like he said, she said. He could literally just be like, no, I had one of my friends take my bags to the hotel for afterwards, right? And then it's just like, how can you prove it or not? Right? So the basketball perspective of this is the Memphis Grizzlies are third right now in the Western standings, but the West is much different than the East, where they could easily fall. What if they lose 2 or 3 games and a couple of the teams behind them win 2 or 3 games? They could fall from 3 to 9, right? They could fall from 3 to 10, where all of a sudden they're the third seed to a play-in game, play-in tournament, and then you have all this Morant stuff hanging over your head, and it just becomes one of those things where it's just like the funniest part of all this. And I was gonna wait for Casino to be here for me to say this, but it's taken care of his kid. The funniest thing about all this is Shannon Sharp kind of warned us about this. Like, who would have thought from that whole Lakers situation? I don't think he was right to do that in that circumstance, but
Oh,
uh
Shannon Sharp.
he was yeah. The funny thing is that I was just saying to them, Casino, is Shannon Sharp was right when he got in that like big thing with John Morant. I don't think he was right to get into it with him on the floor, but his impassioned speech about it the next day or the next 2 days or that Monday following on First Take, where he was talking about John Morant and John Morant's dad and entourage and how he still thinks he's like a gangster or a thug and like all that kind of stuff. All
There
that
you go.
kind
Justified.
of right. Like he was, it's weird the shit that Shannon Sharp like knows that come out to be true months later. He also said that thing about how nobody in Seattle liked Russell Wilson anymore, and there was issues with him having the front off or an office at Seahawks facility, and everybody was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then like that story broke a couple weeks ago where it was like everything he said was true. And so I don't know. I just think,
Well, I mean, John Morant, he didn't come from the best area and whatnot. He worked hard to get into the NBA and whatnot, but that it would. I would assume, obviously, I'm not in that situation. I would assume it would be hard to kind of cut ties with, you know, the people you knew, how you grew up a bit, and I don't know. Just throwing that out there a little bit as devil's advocate, not trying to justify. I don't think I'm totally fine with uh, people like doing their open carry and whatnot or concealed carry, but you keep it away unless it needs to be used, and so flashing it around at the club, I just like why are you doing that?
and I
It
know,
doesn't look great. Just don't do that.
yeah, I know from our numbers that we have a shockingly large amount of listeners from outside of the United States. I don't know why, but I'm glad you're listening. So thanks for listening. Now, me and Casino are obviously both Americans. Uh, I think in my life, I've touched a gun once, and it was like my wife's uncle was like showing me a new gun he got, and he was like, hold it. And I was just like, okay, and I like held it, but I didn't put my hand on the trigger. I literally just like sat on top of my hands and I was like, okay, here you go. Like, cool gun. I don't know shit about guns. I've never shot a gun. I don't know anybody who like has guns besides my wife's uncle, basically. And, he has like the permits and all that kind of shit. So,
Right.
this thing with America where like guns are so prevalent, it's just like, yeah, I'm sure in certain parts of the country and certain, swaths of people, like you said, farmers, hunters, like obviously like gangsters and want to be gangsters, blah, blah, blah. But guns are still one of those things where I support people to have them like legally. Obviously, making things illegal doesn't make it so people can't get it, right? So just making guns illegal doesn't mean it would get rid of guns. That's a fucking stupid argument. But it's one of those things where if you're one of the stars, or if you're in the NBA, or if you're in any professional sport, and it's literally like there's 5 things you probably shouldn't do, right? It's like drugs, money, hookers, whatever the fuck it is, like all those type of vices. It's like those are the things you shouldn't do because they will affect your legacy, but it's also really fucking hard, or your career, money, all that kind of shit. It's also really hard to tell a 22-year-old kid who went from, like you said, rough neighborhood, probably didn't have much growing up, to now all of a sudden he has hundreds, or getting to the point where we'll have hundreds of millions of dollars and you just have unlimited money. And then it's just like everybody just wants you to trade in, that lifestyle to now all of a sudden you're wearing suit and ties and you're like a fucking businessman. And it's like, he's 22 years old. Like,
Yeah.
he just needs people in his life to teach him, like, listen, man, like, you can have guns, register it, do all that kind of stuff, but don't just be flashing it to anybody because you're a young multimillionaire now, which makes you a target for people who will be like, he pulled a gun on me, I had a gun. Like, fuck that guy, I know he has a gun on him, right? Like, now this just opens you up as a target when you're already a target because you're a multimillionaire in the public spotlight. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, man, I don't know. And
But
I
here's the
really
thing,
like,
you say to get somebody to try to, like, help him be like, "Hey, yeah, don't do that," like a PR person, but they have to be willing to also not go down that route.
well,
Like,
that,
he's
yeah.
22, he's 22. He's You think he's listening to authority? No.
Yeah. And
Like,
we were, if somebody gave us 20 or $50 million when we were 22, I'm not being like, oh, I would have invested it and spent the money wisely. Like, no way in fuck I would have done
no.
that.
No.
Like,
We would have yeah, we would have, gone and got balloons full of helium and lit them on fire and watch them go poof.
I
Not
mean,
saying I've done that.
I'm not saying I would have fucking went out and bought a bunch of guns, but I probably would have done some really irresponsible shit with it and put myself in dangerous situations. Like, of course I would have. Like, of
Right.
any 22-year-old who one day had nothing, the next day has multi-million dollars. Like, you're
It's like
kidding
they
yourself if it's just like, I would be a respectable adult. Like,
right.
no, you
There's
wouldn't.
movies on that.
But
Just saying.
just from
Just
the
saying.
just from the basketball point of view, like,
Uh,
yeah, John Morant, 23 years old. I really hope he kind of like, I don't know, just figures his shit out and just like kind of like gets his head on
well, I
straight and is
I hope
just,
after this incident, and like you said, there will be, like, people know now that he carries, and I hope there's now going to be like some sort of like trigger, and there's going to be some people talking to him about this for a long time to come. That I do think that, well, at least I hope that this will trigger something. Be like, hey, I gotta stop doing stupid shit, to be looked on by the league. Like, again, you're gonna do, you want to be who you want to be. That's fine. That's your choice as a person to act how you want to act, and do what you want to do, be what you want to be. But if you want to have a longevity in this profession, you need to
just be
calm
smarter.
it down a little bit. Yeah, just be a little
Yeah.
smarter about it.
Well, also, and
That's
again,
it.
this is the thing where if he wants to have open carry and, all the licenses and stuff like that, that doesn't make it better, but at least it makes it so it's like not so like, well, first off, even with open carry, you shouldn't just be flashing it on like an Instagram live because obviously that sends the wrong
At a
message
nightclub?
with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
But
That's kind of what I was saying.
I looked this up because I was like, is Memphis like a dangerous area or whatever? Memphis has the highest violent and property crime rate in the United States. Memphis, Tennessee is the most dangerous, the most violent US city in the United States, which you could have offered me $1 million to name it. Memphis wouldn't have been in my top
Well,
50 guesses. Like,
which one's your number one?
I would have guessed Chicago. I would have guessed New York.
Always the one that I always hear
It's
about.
always Chicago, right?
Always.
Like, but yeah, apparently Memphis, Tennessee Seattle has the most reported burglaries. Tennessee has the most uh highest violent and property crime rate. That's fucking crazy. That is crazy. But yeah, hopefully Morant comes back better and just ready to take the Grizzlies into the playoffs. Now Casino, who I thought was coming out of the West, jumping over the Memphis Grizzlies. Nice segue right there. Who I thought
Boom.
the Memphis Grizzlies, or who I thought was going to shoot right past the Memphis Grizzlies, right to the top of the standings, was the Phoenix Suns. And now there is concerns because Kevin Durant last night was injured uh, in pregame, did not play in the game, but report as of today, Suns forward Kevin Durant could miss the rest of the regular season with an ankle sprain. So again, all the top choices,
They're
it's
pretty
like whenever
set.
you
Like
call
I'm pulling
something,
up the. Go for it.
it's
Go for it. Continue. Sorry.
yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like whenever you call something in any sport, it's like always in the back of your mind, you have to be like, well, this doesn't happen if there's like freak injuries or something like that. At this point, Kevin Durant is, I don't want to say injury prone, but he's definitely had more injuries as he's gotten older, right? He missed a lot of time with the Nets for that, missed some time with the Golden State Warriors, but when he's in, he's top 3 player in the league. And his son's debut, he had a great game, him and Devin Booker. Like, this team can win the West title. Can they do it without Kevin Durant? I don't know, because the West again is so just open. Like, if the West, it's Nuggets, Kings, Grizzlies, Suns, Warriors, Clippers, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Lakers. So the Pelicans are right under that. Thunder are right under that. I don't think either of those are viable teams. Mavericks play no defense whatsoever, right? Kyrie Irving
Fair
again
enough.
came out last night post game after a loss and was talking about the most random shit ever again. So he's due for another
So I mean,
episode or a leave of absence, or he
so
can't
you say
play
that you're
because of
right. So you say that you're worried about the Suns now with
yes.
him being hurt. I mean, they still. I mean, I know the Thunder's not the greatest team out there. But oh, dog wants in. They're not the greatest team out there, but I mean, the Suns still still beat them by 31. They still put up over 130 points. Um,
Yeah,
so do
but
you
they were
think
playing the Thunder.
that's kind of what
They
I'm
were
saying?
playing
So I want to ask you, is that like, I mean, do you think that that was just like an outlier kind of thing, or do you think that they're still got enough talent to remain in that 4 seed over in the West? Because currently, as I'm looking at it here, like the Warriors, the Warriors are 3 games back on them, as well as the Clippers. Do you think the Suns could drop down to the 6, 7, maybe even the 8, with Kevin Durant being out?
Uh no, but that's only, I do think they might fall behind the Warriors. I don't know if they can
Okay.
keep pace with the Warriors, but the Warriors are having like an all-time historically bad record on the road season. Like, their record at home is phenomenal. Their record at home is abysmal.
Oh wow!
Like, they've
Oh
only
wow!
won, yeah. You have the stats right there. They've only won 4 on the road, right? Is that the
No, so the Suns show the blah blah go move or not the Suns, the Warriors, blah blah blah. Away, they're 7-25.
Yeah, 7-25. I believe there's only 2 teams that have a worse win record on the road, and it's like the Rockets and Spurs, who are both
Rock
the 2
6.
worst teams in the
Yeah,
West.
they're both at 6. Yeah,
So the Warriors, again, I wouldn't, if I
Pistons
was,
also have 7 wins on the road. That's it.
ugh,
But in
and the
in the West,
Pistons are the worst team in the East. So
yeah.
the
So their road record is tied with the 3 worst teams in the league.
yeah, and they're currently the 5th seed. So they have 34-32 record. They're 6-4 in their last 10. Steph Curry has come back. Is he injured now? I don't know. I don't know, man. the Warriors, again, the Warriors are one of those teams where would I want to play them in the playoffs? Absolutely not, because they have three guys that can just all of a sudden jack up 8 threes, and all of a sudden you're down by 12 points in the fourth quarter, and you're like, how the fuck did this happen? Like, they're one of those
Oh
teams
yeah,
where if they get hot, there's nobody really in the league who can keep up with them.
I was
And
watching.
especially, go
Go
ahead.
for it. I was gonna say I was just watching a lot of the college basketball recently, and teams are up by 10, and you're like, okay, up by 10, and then I'm continuing doing some of my bar work, and then I look over and it's a 1 point game, and it was like, oh, because this team just hit three threes in a row. Like,
Yeah.
but and
Well,
you're
that's
right,
just
the Warriors can do that. Like they have that talent to be like all of a sudden you blink and they're back within the game. So
yeah. So I don't know. The West, again,
I
I
was gonna say,
still
let me.
think the
I wanted to say now. I am going to cut you off here. Um, Now in the West, do you think this is pretty much it's the Nuggets going the whole way? Now with the Durant being injured, because if he does come back, say he's gone the regular season, and he comes back for the playoffs. Um, do you think it's his injury is going to be significant enough to not help them propel going forward?
So there's about like 15, 16 games left on the regular season schedule. Only thing I will say about the Nuggets holding on to that 1 seed in the West is right now they are 7 games ahead of the Kings. No, I don't think the Kings can catch them, but the Nuggets last what 15, 16 games that I just said. It is a murderer's row of oops. I think I just there it is. A murderer's row of teams they have to play. They are playing, you know, Spurs, Nets, Raptors, Pistons, which are good, but then they're playing a really feisty Knicks team. They play the Bucks, the Sixers, the Suns, the Warriors, the Suns again, end with Kings and Jazz. Like, that's kind of a tough schedule to end on, but I don't think the Kings can catch them. The Grizzlies are in third, but with all the Morant stuff, who knows what the fuck Grizzlies, and they were already kind of sliding back down before the Morant thing happened. And then that happened at the worst time. Then you get to the Suns, which can they overcome the Durant injury? They'll definitely be in the playoffs, but who knows what seed they are. The Warriors, I mean, with that road record, all their wins are basically going to have to come at home, right? So they're going to basically have to go undefeated at home to move up or pretty much stay at fifth. The Clippers, now we get to the Clippers, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Lakers. The Clippers casino, since trading for Russell Westbrook, and I got this yesterday, so this is not including last night's game, but the Clippers are 1-5 since trading for Russell Westbrook and have moved from the 4th seed to the 8th seed in the West.
Ooh,
The
wow.
Lakers, on the other end, even with LeBron injured, since they traded Russell Westbrook, they are 7-3 and have moved all the way up from the 13th seed to the 9th seed. So
Wow. Talk about a plague on a team, man. Ooh.
I said it on this
Ooh.
podcast. Why the fuck would you trade for Russell Westbrook if you're the Clippers? You had like kind of a good thing going right there, but the Clippers trade of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, where they were like the next like super team or whatever, is a failure on all levels, right? Those two guys barely play games together. Kawhi Leonard almost sat out for 2 years. They've never won. I think they've won one playoff series, if that. So just an abysmal abomination. This would have been the year where it was just like, we can make a run because there's nobody really threatening in the West. Everybody's kind of within each other. Again, the Nuggets always crumble when they get to the playoffs.
Okay.
So West is wide open. I like the Lakers. Anthony Davis has been going off since LeBron hasn't been there. And if LeBron's rested and they get back into the playoffs, then it's eerily similar to the 2020 bubble year where LeBron James got that big rest, came back, rejuvenated, and then they now have one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. So I really like
Got it.
I think in the West, I really like the Lakers. I like the Warriors. I don't trust the Mavericks at all because they don't play defense. I thought they would be a much better defensive team than they've shown, but they're just going to have to outscore everybody. And then I don't trust the Clippers and then the Suns. So really it's Nuggets, if they can overcome their playoff collapses, Suns, Warriors, Lakers, anybody else comes out of that West, I'd be shocked. Now, last thing in the NBA casino, we'll move over to the East. Sixers are kind of surging a little, but I've
Mhm.
seen this story before. I don't trust them. I don't trust
Well,
this team. I don't trust Harden in the playoffs.
let,
Uh,
let, I'm gonna propose a couple things. Since you know this a little better than me, kind of give you a couple talking points here. So, obviously, it's getting closer to the end of the season. I'm watching it a little bit more because I mean I'm still a sports guy, and I like watching. I like watching the playoffs of any sport and getting there. So I mean, the Celtics they did win. They did win the other night, but they were on
against
a
the
3 game.
Trailblazers.
Yeah, against the Trailblazers. But they were on a 3 game losing streak against good teams. They had the Cavs, the Knicks, and the Nets that they had lost to, which are teams that are outside of the Sixers are all right below them. Um, I know that you kind of said like the Bucks and the Celtics were on their own little island. But as you're saying, the Sixers are making a little bit of a surge. They've won 3 in a row. The Nets have won 3 in a row. The Knicks, they did lose, but they were doing all right. And then I mean the Cavs, they keep moving. So let me ask you, is it a panic time yet for Boston? Or do you think they just had a 3 game slip up? Are the Bucks for real? And do you think one of these two New York teams, the Cavs or the Sixers, are legitimate enough to go after those top two teams, especially since like the Celtics have shown a little bit of weakness.
I
So I
do
propose
think
that to you because I mean, going last time we talked was a little different, so I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I do think the team now, I remember last time saying like, "Oh, I trust the Bucks and Celtics." I think I'm down to just trusting the Bucks. I really
Okay.
do think the Bucks come out of the East. The Celtics now, when it comes to the Sixers, they own the Sixers. Every Sixers Celtics game I've watched this season, it's felt like the Sixers or no, it's felt like the Celtics just dominate them, right? And then win the game, even though the game's close. And then at the end of the game, watching it, you're like, how the fuck did this game end as a 3-point game? Because it felt like the Sixers just murdered them the entire game. That's felt like every Sixers Celtics game I've watched this entire season. Now, where it becomes interesting is the Knicks. So the Celtics have the Sixers number. It really feels like the Knicks have the Celtics number. They beat them twice. They beat them once pretty convincingly. And then the Knicks had a 9-game win streak. Now, everybody obviously inflates and blows up the Knicks just because it's a New York team. The media would really love the Knicks to be good. Are they good? I mean, they're the 5th seed in the East, but as we've said on this pod before, the East and West feel the West is obviously a lot closer than the East, even though in the East, the numbers are closer, but the teams feel like bigger chasms, right? Like it really does feel like Bucks, Celtics are clear 1 and 2, and then everybody's under there. Whereas the West, it feels like it's wide open. It could be anybody. However, when you look at the records of the East, like the East teams are better collectively than the West, even though it doesn't feel like that way. So I really do think, I don't think the Nets or Heat or Hawks, Raptors, they're 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't think they're in contention for anything this year. I obviously talked about the Sixers as a fan. I watch a lot of their games. It's one of those things where, like the Nuggets, I'm waiting to see what they are in the playoffs. Now, where it comes down to is Cavaliers and Knicks. I don't know what to make of either of these teams. I've liked the Cavaliers even before the season. I just like their team makeup and their additions in the offseason of Donovan Mitchell. I feel like has just picked up that franchise to places it hasn't been since LeBron left, right? And then when it comes to the Knicks, they're like really feisty and like just really interesting team to watch because they almost feel like they get up for big games. And they're obviously coached by Thibodeau, who always just seems like he hypes his team up to play in big situations, right? He did that with the Bulls. So I don't know. I don't think the Knicks can do. I don't think the Knicks can beat the Bucks, but in a 7-game series from what I've seen, especially the past couple weeks, I think they might be able to beat the Celtics in a series. I really do want to see Knicks Celtics 5 or 7-game series in the NBA playoffs and just kind of have like both those teams just be like, all right, prove it. Like, prove you can beat this other team this many times.
Fair.
But yeah, I really do think if I had to put money on it, I think it's uh Bucks, Suns, or I feel like I'd go Warriors. I don't really see anybody else in the league right now. I mean, I would love to put the Sixers on that list, but the reason they're not on the list is the same reason the Nuggets are, which is I've seen this story before. Great in the regular season, and then they just collapse in the playoffs for whatever
Fair
fucking
enough.
reason. Jokic, Harden, I don't know. I need to see it in the playoffs. All right, Casino. Let's do NHL, and then
That was good.
we'll
That was.
I'm out of breath.
I'm very proud of you, Steph. You talk way too much. I talk way too little about this. Well, you've
That's our
talked about this, and
dynamic.
I've listened.
People love it.
Yeah, that's the story. That's the story of our lives. Story of our lives. Anyway, so yeah, we're starting to. Oh, come on, stupid thing. We're starting to get towards the end of the season here. We've got. I won't go. I'll try to do what you just did for the NBA, but also I want to kind of hit on some of the awards that are getting ready to be out there, and um, yeah, who's running the top awards. I won't get into the actual like numbers on it, but a few of the big awards out there. I mean, you have the Hart Memorial, which is given to the league's most valuable player. Currently, Connor McDavid. You're going to hear that name a lot. He's having a stellar year. Even though the Oilers, let me move over here real quick. Even though the Oilers aren't doing super hot right now, Connor McDavid is still just absolutely insane. He's one of the best players to ever play the game, in my personal opinion. But yeah, he's currently the heavy front runner for MVP this year, and reason being is going on how many goals he's scored, points he's scored. So like the Rocket Richard Award trophy goes to the most the league leader in goals. He's currently winning that. I'm going to go to this other page because it actually breaks down things for me slightly better. But yeah, he's got. Why are you doing that to me? Anyway, yeah, he's leading the front runner on that. He's also leading the league in most points. So he's also on that watch for that award, which that award is called the Art Ross Award. Sorry again, I'm just not 100% prepared today. I'm awful. I'm an awful person, awful human being, human born. Jesus.
That's not true,
Plus,
Casino.
my
That's
phone
not
is
true.
not. Thank you. Plus, my phone's not being 100% cooperative. So one of my favorite trophies, I always like this one because I play goalie myself in indoor soccer. Well, I used to. I don't play much anymore. But the Vesna is the trophy awarded to the best goaltender, and by a large margin, it goes to Linus Ullmark for the Boston Bruins because they're still having potentially the best season in NHL history. They're still on pace for that because they just
Now,
don't lose.
this is my question to you, Casino.
Fair
When
enough.
you
Let's talk.
bring up the Bruins, there is 20 games left the Bruins have.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, they have 103 points. The record in a season is 136 points. Do you think they break that record?
So
in 20 games, can they get 33 points?
Yes, because if they win out, that would get you 40 points because it's 2 points per win. And yeah, they're looking good. And you can still lose a game in overtime and still get a point. So I'm not going to do that, break down that math, but we're looking at a handful of games where as long they can lose as long as they make it to overtime, which is possible. But they're in full stride right now. Like I said, they've gotten better. Well, they're on a 10-game win streak right now. Their last 10
now
games.
My second question for you is 20 games left. They need to win 16 of these games to break the record for most wins in a season. Do you think, or no, I'm sorry, they need to win 13 of 20 games to tie the record, 14 to break it. They are
Yeah,
on pace right now.
and that is if they win the game in regulation. So they can
Yes.
still lose. So say they win 13 games, right? Or so they have to win 13 games, then they can do that. All right, how about you just throw this out? They win 10 games, they lose 7, but they or lose 6 in they have some regulation losses or some overtime losses. You're still gaining points. I 100% think that they could do this, especially like I was saying, the acquisitions they acquired at the trade deadline, and with them, they're on a tear right now. They're like I said, their last 10 games, they're not just winning them. They're not just winning them; they're winning them in regulation. They're absolutely crushing teams. Here, I'm going to pull up their actual
So
season.
you
What
do think they
the score been?
break both the points scored and wins in a season records this season?
Yeah, easily. 100%
Damn.
because with points, they're still racking up points like it's absolutely nothing. Their last few games, four goals, 7 goals, 4 goals, 3 goals, 3 goals, 6 goals, 3 goals, 6 goals, 5 goals, 3 goals, two
Jesus.
goals, and 5. In their last 10 games, their lowest goals per game is 2. Like they're just it's up. Okay, I'll get you up. Yeah, they're absolutely crushing it. And their goaltending has just been phenomenal. So the game, there's not a lot of game. Oh, you know how to get down. Okay, I'm coming.
Also, speaking of
There you go.
hockey.
Anyway,
Oh,
there you go. It's
casino's
on.
back. There you
I'm back. But
go.
yeah, no, it's they're absolutely crushing it. So yeah. Um, and then so now I'm gonna kind of go back over to I'm talking about defense. That's a good segue into the James Norris Trophy. That goes to the best defenseman. Um, it's not a Bruins player, which is shocking. I know, but it is a player that a lot of people wanted. Eric Carlson, fantastic player. So he's a front runner for that. Uh, Best rookie though goes to Matty Beniers. It's not official, but that's kind of where it's looking like. And then, of course, best coach of the year. It's gonna go to the Boston Bruins head coach in Jim. He's gonna crush it. Anyway, so now I'm gonna talk about like the standings here. Sorry, trying to deal with the kid at the same time. It's always fun. I'm a little flustered. But again, really nothing's changed. As I've said, it's pretty much set when it comes to, like for example, the Atlantic Division, Lightning, Maple Leafs, and Bruins. They're in. They're in. It is going to be a fight for the wild cards when it comes into those last couple teams. Same goes over for the Metropolitan. You got the Hurricanes, the Devils, and the Rangers. Nothing's going to be changed there. The Islanders, again, they've just played more games. They are creeping up on the Rangers, but it's not going to happen. And the Penguins are just a full debacle. So there's clear the teams that are being coming out of the East. Moving over to the Western Conference, again, this one is a little bit more wide open. All in all, I'm really excited for the NHL playoffs. Yes, the East is going to be fun to watch, but watching the West, like the East, because like I said, all these top tier teams have been loading up. So to watch super top talent just beat the hell out of each other in the East is going to be fun. But in the Western Conference, I really feel like any one of these teams, like you asked me last week, who would you think? I still said the Stars. I really just don't know who's going to pull off on this. It's a really good setup for the NHL playoffs. I can't wait to get into them, and we'll move forward with that. I don't really have much
15 more games? 15. When does the regular season end? It ends
82. It's 82 games, and most teams have
middle
played.
of April.
Most teams have played. Looking at the average, 64 games. So we're looking at roughly around 18 games left for everybody, roughly, give or take a game or two.
I did
Do you
go
have any
to the
questions that I
hockey
can answer
game.
for you? Because like I said, I wasn't fully prepared, so I can answer on the fly.
No, I was just gonna say, me and the wife did go to the Golden Knights game on Sunday. I believe it was against the Canadiens, and it was a fun game, but man, it got a lot closer than it was the first period. Knights dominated. Second period, Canadians came back, and then all of a sudden it was like a one goal game when the Knights were like winning by 3 with like I think 5 minutes left to go, and there was a bunch of obnoxious drunk like Canadian fans around us who were losing their
That's
minds.
their MO.
Yeah. So it's I mean, nothing better than watching like a Golden Knights game, but yeah. I mean, I didn't really have anything.
But I mean, I'm glad they did pull that off because I mean, the Canadians are the worst team in the Atlantic Division. So I'm glad they pulled that off. And I did watch that entire game. Jonathan Quick, that was his debut for the Golden Knights. I know I talked about that, and the Golden Knights had their questions with goalie going towards the playoffs. He played really well, especially being his first start with the team. However, the defense did fall apart a few times, and the goals that were scored on him were turnovers, either in the defensive or the neutral zone. So the Golden Knights gotta fix that. But again, if my daughter's calling for me, so
yeah,
I think
both our kids are freaking out. I think we'll call it their casino, unless you got anything else.
No. Oh, I'm wearing the shirt again. Just by chance. I just love it. It's just great.
Okay. All right. This has been the Only Sports Podcast, ended somewhat prematurely by our 2 children. I'm Father Will. That's Father Casino. We'll be back next week. Adios, Casino.
Bye.
It's always great to go out on a podcast with a just child-free bloody murder.
Bloody murder, yeah. Great.
We'll see you next week. Adios. Bye.